Hey everyone, my name is Ben Chaish. I'm a wedding and elopement photographer based in Tacoma, Washington. In this video, we're gonna talk about the gear that I bring to weddings, what I put in my bags, what my bags are, all that good stuff. I just got done photographing a wedding last night, and so this is my disheveled, sort of, voice lost version of the next day. I brought my stuff into my office, was gonna unpack it and stuff like that, and so I figured I would show you guys what's in my bags, what I'm using, and yeah, so here we go. All right, so this is my Airport International version 3. It is a carry-on size suitcase that when I'm traveling on a plane or whatever, I can travel, bring it on the plane. I never obviously leave my gear. I never check it, anything like that, because I need to just have everything with me. I definitely travel differently when I'm traveling on a plane versus showing up to a local wedding, but this is me just opening up my bag after getting home. What you'll see missing though is one camera and one lens, and that's because when I drive up to a wedding venue or anything like that, and when I leave, I always have a camera on me, and so that camera is this Leica M240. Attached to it is the 21 millimeter, it's just a wide angle lens because I took a couple venue shots as I left. So that's why this camera wasn't in this bag, and it's in another bag that I'll show you in a second. But this is kind of how my stuff's laid out. This is what's in my bag. A couple things that you can't really see here, but there's an inhaler because I have asthma. There's also some Pepto-Bismol because, that stuff can happen. And deep in here as well, really important before we get to gear, is a little bottle of ibuprofen, but there's also, some allergy pills, some Benadryl, stuff like that in there too, just in case I need that. So in here, I shot both 120 and 35 millimeter film this last wedding. So I brought that. There's some just extra film. This is KODAK COLORPLUS 200, which is kind of like a budget consumer film, but I use that in point and shoots sometimes if I have extra time at a reception or like dancing is just going really long or something like that. I'll bust this out. It's just a direct flash, but it imprints the date on the photos, so it's kind of fun. So bring that sometimes just for fun. The only SLR I have is this Canon EOS 3. It's a film camera that looks exactly like, like a regular 5D. Yeah, it's a great camera. I shoot the 50 millimeter 1.8 lens, like just the cheap $125 one. But for whatever reason on film, and actually I'm sure it's just a great lens. So yeah, I shoot this thing a lot for film. It's not as sexy or cool as some of the other vintage cameras I have, but it does a really, really good job. Everything's all auto, winding, all that kind of stuff. So that makes it great. Kind of like my personal lens and camera that I use for fun is this Leica M6. It has a 28 millimeter Voigtlander ULTRON that I picked up super cheap off KEH. Yeah, pretty much my personal camera that I use all the time, but obviously it works really well at weddings as well. So that comes with me. And then the first of my main cameras that is always in the bag is this Leica M240. These are my main cameras. This is what I shoot 90%, 95, 98% of my actual work with. They're a little bit older, but they are digital rangefinders. They're mirrorless, and so yeah, they have just a really, really good form factor. And as you can kind of see with this Leica M6, they are very, very, very similar. And so a lot of times people are kind of asking me like, hey, are you shooting film? Like, what's going on here? But the nice thing is all these things are interchangeable, so I can use this lens on this camera and vice versa. So it's just a nice little setup to be able to have to shoot film with. The lens that is usually on one camera or the other is this 35 millimeter from Zeiss. It is a Distagon 35 1.4. Yeah, really, really great lens. It's not like amazing, but for the price, it's kind of like the best all around for the money 35 millimeter lens that I found for the M mount system. So I use that. And then my favorite lens, maybe of all time, maybe it's the best lens I've ever used, is this 50 1.4. It is the newest version of the Leica SUMMILUX from Leica, obviously. It is a 50 1.4, which doesn't sound that amazing, but this is just the best lens that I have. It's incredibly sharp, but still has really, really great character. It's so small, but it's like very, very heavy. And it is the most kind of like medium format feeling 35 millimeter lens format that I've ever used. It's perfect. It's just the best lens that I've ever used. So yeah, fantastic, fantastic lens. So usually that never really leaves a camera except when I'm packing up. The next lens that I have, I don't know why that's in here, but I have an 80s, I think it's from the 80s. It's a 90 millimeter Leica SUMMICRON, which means it's an f2. So yeah, it's great for ceremonies, speeches, that kind of thing. And ultimately for a 90 millimeter f2, it's still pretty small, even though it looks pretty big on my normal cameras. So I shoot with, yes, a 28 millimeter, a 35 millimeter, a 50 millimeter, and a 90 millimeter. And then in addition, for really big, expansive things, stuff like that, I shoot this 21 millimeter. It's another Voigtlander lens. It's a 21 1.8. They call it an ULTRON. So I use this for wide stuff and then also for dance photos. So kind of when it's party dancing, when people are using, when I'm using flash and just kind of like photographing people having a really good time. The 21 millimeter is really great because it's really wide. It lets me, yeah, kind of capture the mood of everything really well. So that is my other lens that I use with this whole setup. And then speaking of flash, these are the flashes I use. And so it's kind of crazy, but I use these tiny, tiny little flashes. I think they're $32 on Amazon. It is the JY610-2 from VILTROX. It takes 2 AA batteries. And so I have to bring less batteries. It's small, it's powerful enough for what I do. And my kind of like dance flash setup just looks like this. So I usually always have 2, this and another one, whether it's with the 28 or the 35. Usually the 35 to have a little bit tighter of a lens when I'm shooting that. But yeah, it's just such a good tiny little setup, and it's really versatile. This little flash also bounces up, so I actually took the family portraits and stuff like that just by bouncing this off of the ceiling yesterday, and it gives, yeah, really, really good rendering, all that kind of stuff. And they're like crazy cheap, and the form factor for any of the smaller mirrorless cameras or anything like that, as long as you are okay with shooting manual on your flashes, they are awesome. So that is a great thing. What I use to carry my cameras is this HOLDFAST MONEYMAKER. They are awesome. I've been using them basically ever since they came out. A friend gave me one as a gift for officiating his wedding a long time ago, and yeah, I have been using them ever since. I always am able to have 2 cameras on me at all times, and I don't have to be holding them. I don't have to worry about them falling off my shoulders, anything like that. Yeah, and they're just really, really great. I have some people say that if they have longer hair, that these D-rings will grab their hair, but a reminder that you can order these without the D-rings if you don't need to use them. So yeah, they're really, really great, and they have, really yeah, good hardware. And anybody that I've ever heard of had an issue with them, they've always just been taken care of with Matt and the guys from HOLDFAST. So yeah, really, really like that. And now we're getting into kind of like the more random things. I have this giant battery backup pack. It's from Anker. You guys have probably seen these just from traveling and all that kind of stuff. Has 2 inputs. And one of the things that's really, really great about it is I bought these little chargers so that I have 4 batteries, so 2 for each of my cameras. And I've never gone through all of them, but just in case I ever do, this thing's just really great. And so you can plug these in. They're USB. They're battery chargers for, you know, your camera's batteries. And so I can plug that in here in case my batteries ever die, or I'm out on an elopement or something like that. I can always, yeah, just shoot these, plug this in here. Then I also obviously keep an iPhone cable as well. So that's what's inside my actual roller bag. This is what, again, I will kind of like roll into a venue or roll into a plane or a hotel or whatever that kind of thing is. And then the last thing that I'll mention is that if I am traveling to a wedding out of state or something like that, my laptop goes in here, kind of some personal things like, you know, keys and things like that go in there. And then I can put hard drives and things like that in here. But since it was a local wedding, I didn't have to bring that stuff. So all right, this is my Ona bag. This is the leather Brixton, and I think they call the color Antique Cognac, something like that. I've had this bag for years. Like it's crazy beat up. Here, I can kind of show you some of it. But it's one of those things that, like, you know, leather just looks better and better as it ages. So scratches, you know, whatever you want to call this, bruising. The color just is so good. Yeah, I just really love it. I've had it for years. It's been to almost every continent on the world with me. So inside of it, this is kind of like what has ended up at the end in the aftermath, kind of like I said. So this is one of my Leica M240s, which is one of my main cameras. I always, again, leave with one of these cameras on me so that I can take one last venue shot and get establishing shots, stuff like that. So that's why this ended up in this bag. So this, again, is the Leica M240 with the Voigtlander 21mm. There's another one of these little VILTROX flashes. So I have two of them, obviously, A for backup and B because I usually just always have two cameras on me. And if I'm shooting flash, I want to have two cameras that shoot flash. I usually kind of store some of the film that I've been shooting and stuff like that throughout the day in this other section. So here's a couple of the rolls I shot that just kind of ended up here at the end of the night. Here's an extra roll. Usually I have a couple more in these front pockets, but that's kind of usually how I dump the film into those sections. Again, if you guys have watched my backup video, you've seen these. These are my card holders. My system is that if I've used these cards and they're unusable, like I shouldn't shoot them, they're flipped upside down like this. And then if I can use them, if they're available, they're blank, then they're flipped right side up like that. And then I have another one of these that's in the other bag that I just forgot to get out. But yeah, I always keep one of these in each of the bags. And then if I ever have to swap the cards out, these go just directly into my pocket so it doesn't fall out, because it's big enough that it would be really obvious if it did fall out. And then other just random things, I put my keys in here. My hands have been really dry because it's been winter and, yeah, cold here and stuff like that. And then I have another inhaler. And then in this pocket, these front pockets are where I have my other batteries. So yeah, just always want to have extra film, extra batteries, keys, inhalers, stuff like that on me, and just kind of like ready to use. Usually I have like my little medicine thing of ibuprofen and stuff like that in there as well. But this is a good carry for me. It's easy for me to take on and off. Usually I just kind of have it slung around my back, carrying around. And it obviously works really good for traveling too, in case I want to put my laptop in here or anything else like that. But yeah, between the two, those are my two main carries for a wedding day. And if I'm shooting an elopement, usually I just bring this instead of the other bag as well and kind of wear the stuff. But yeah, there you go. All right, hopefully that was helpful. I will leave links to all of those things, all of the gear, all of the just random stuff in the description below. I will also try to find the links to the Canon and Nikon and Sony and Fuji specific chargers and all that kind of stuff as well. So if you have any questions about any of those things, or if you would like me to make a video specifically on one of those, you know, tech gadgets or the lenses or the cameras or anything like that, let me know. I'm planning on doing some things like that, but if there's a bunch of interest in one of those specifically, I'd love to make it happen for you. So anyway, thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.